Hello and welcome back to Belmont Bunch. This week we're discussing the Islanders' two losses against Carolina in the first two games of the Stanley Cup playoffs in round one. We're going to talk about how it's bullshit and those wins should be given to the Islanders instead, retroactively. Tom, why don't you talk us through, talk us off the ledge, Tom.
I'm not the person to talk people off the ledge. Just initial gut feelings, because I feel like that's maybe helpful for Islander fans right now.
Tom is so upset by these losses that he's sick. He has made himself ill by becoming so.
First give context and say thank you, James, for doing the intro. My allergies are absolutely destroying me right now. And it has been a week. It's been a week. So very, 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 very frustrating pair of losses. The first one, not as much so because I just didn't feel like the Islanders deserved it. They gave up 2 power play goals, and that was the difference. Very frustrating. The referees are going to be talked about. The Pulock penalty just wasn't a penalty. They called a slash. It was Stefan Nason was right on top of the net, would have finished it into an empty net. Ryan Pulock hit his stick, but it was not a slash. Didn't come down or anything. Just kind of like forced his stick out of the way. Terrible call. I think everyone would acknowledge that's not a slash. And the Canes score on the power play. And it's 2-0 at that point. The Isles just never, the offense just couldn't get going at all. The Canes are fast in the breakout. So the Islanders, most of the Islanders offense comes out of forechecking and creating turnovers and creating turmoil in the other team's zone. And the Canes are really, really fast in the breakout. Their defensemen are really, really skilled and good offensively and good at getting out of their own zone. And I think that's something the Islanders can maybe look to reinforce in the next couple of years. I know, you've got guys like Dobson, and that's pretty much it. Sebastian Aho skates all right. But look at the Canes. They're able to break pressure that the Islanders bring on the forecheck by being so quick at these outlet passes and everything. And so the Islanders couldn't get any momentum going. And the Islanders got a very, very fluky goal on a Ryan Pulock. Ryan Pulock, by the way, got us going on the right foot. Big hits right out of the gate. Ryan Pulock was the best skater by far. And that's a guy I haven't really lauded much this year. And I thought he played great in game one. Goal aside, because the goal wasn't pretty. He just put it on net. He made a nice move to get around some defensemen. But threw it to the net, and Antti Ranta's stick deflected it up and made it look like a better shot. Since I didn't see it hit the stick coming in, I thought he sniped it, but it was just a weird delay because it took – but he sniped it because it went top corner, but also it took a while to get top corner, and then I saw the replay. I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah, and the replay kind of looked like it wasn't the perfect shot. It looked like it was starting to roll off his stick.
Yeah.
And so it was on the ice. Yeah. And then it got popped up by the goalie stick.
Yeah. And the Islanders in the series have 4 goals, and 2 of them are like that. We'll talk about it, but Kyle Palmieri scored a similar-ish goal. So the Islanders get back in it there, but really, really struggled to put too much together after that. They put together a good late push in the last couple minutes. They did get a puck on net in the last seconds of the game. Bo Horvat threw one on net. Barzal looked like he was still playing his way back a little bit, but I did appreciate having somebody that could come in and add a little bit to the skill gap that I feel like the Islanders unfortunately deal with a lot. Pierre Engvall was one of the only guys that was a skater on the team. One of his attributes was skating.
He kind of this is a hot take. I haven't thought about this much. He kind of makes me think of, he has similar qualities to Zach Parise, but just with more skill,
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it. I think
Like just a very hard worker.
definitely Parise's definitely more willing to be a two-way player in that, like, he's willing to lay the body and put his body on the line. Pierre Engvall is a little bit more of a skill player. That might be a generational difference. Parise came up in the game a while ago and played a two-way game, and the game today is more of like a skill game with, the defense isn't worried about as much. I feel like by some forwards. And so I think maybe that's a generational difference where back in the day you might have had to have a better defensive game. But Zach Parise was also an all-star at one point. I just, his work ethic is unbelievable. I never question it. He's always giving it his all. Anyway, but so I felt like
that's why we're awarding Zach Parise Dad of the Year. He's taking it from Josh Bailey, and he's the new dad of the team.
He's the super hustler. Hustler award. But the Kings did deserve to win game one. It's frustrating the way that they won it, being a power play that I don't think they should have had. But it's hard to argue with, like, how am I going to argue that the Islanders were the better team when their only goal was a fluke? I can't speak. Their only goal was a fluke, and they, like, you could still kill the penalty. Yes, the calls were annoying, but the Islanders' penalty kill has been a strength this year, and it let them down at the worst possible time. So anyway, that's game one. Also, like, the goals, like, from a Sorokin standpoint, the Stefan Nason one is just a tip. No chance whatsoever. The Islanders need to do a better job of tying guys up in front, because the Canes are getting goals from the front of the net via tips and traffic. So the Islanders got to work on that. Samuel Bolduc, I guess, so going into game two now, the Islanders give up the first goal.
Actually, sorry, I mean, I just want to say one more thing about game one before you get into game two. I completely agree. Like, it seems like they're letting a lot of players just stand right in front of Sorokin and just screen him and not trying to reclaim that in front of the crease space. Which, and weirdly, makes me think about Anders Lee, as he does that to the opposing team a lot.
Yeah.
But so the weird connection is that Anders, I felt like, kind of was skating with cement in his shoes during these past two games. I'd have to watch some replays again to, like, make sure, but I'm pretty sure he was responsible for a lot of turnovers. He just wasn't responsible with the puck. I don't know. It felt odd that it's almost like he looked lost in the offensive zone. Like, he would get the puck and then immediately just,
in slight defense, because I don't think you're off base. I think in slight defense of him, a lot of the Islanders looked discombobbled in that first game. Like, Barzy clearly, he didn't have a ton of time to work with Horvat prior to his injury. And there was a spark there, but they didn't get enough time to, like, really establish a rapport. And I think, so far in this series, you haven't really seen them combine for anything. I think Bo Horvat desperately needs to step up. He's great in the face-off circle, and that's big. That is important. But we need to see him, get pucks on net, drive play a little bit more. The Islanders have committed a lot to him. They traded for him. They gave him a big deal. And now he has Matt Barzal as a line mate. I need to see a little bit more. He can't just be an $8 million face-off specialist. I feel like it's kind of been that way.
No, that's interesting, because that's actually really interesting. So we were talking a little bit before we started recording, but I was reading through some of the comments on some replay videos today, and somebody had commented, watching Horvat skate lazily back to the bench for a line change, like, get used to that, Islanders. I've seen that for years when he was in Vancouver. I just thought that was so funny. And I wonder if he's, I don't know, if he's going to get too comfortable.
There has been a lack of, I think it's the opposite. I think he's very uncomfortable, or he, like, hasn't, I haven't seen too much jump in his game. I felt like we saw that immediately after the trade. And that's understandable. He left a situation that he didn't like in Vancouver, where Vancouver was having a really tough year. They had committed money to other guys and not him, their captain. So he felt slighted, and you heard that obviously come out in frustration at the end of the regular season. But he, I think, needs to, like the offseason, hopefully, that's all we have. Like, we have to hope that he turns it around because they've committed a lot to him. And, the way he looks right now, that's an awful, awful deal. But it is a small sample size.
Yeah, I also wonder if some of it is chemistry because, like, even I can't remember if I think it was game 2. So it's what we're about to start talking about. Is he had he was early on in the game he was called offside because I think it was Barzal entering the zone.
Yeah,
and Barzal likes to slow it up before entering the zone. He always looks back to see who's about to enter in, and so that I don't think Horvat he was just going too fast, tried to slow it down and just couldn't. So I think that was just like a microcosm of a chemistry thing, right? Where that's the type of stuff once you build chemistry with your line mates, you know what to expect.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we go with what you were saying and say that he's uncomfortable, it could just be that maybe he's not willing to make that take that initiative, if he's not comfortable without having built that chemistry yet. I don't know.
I don't think it's.
I'm completely speculating.
I don't want to.
We should ask him. Let's get him on the podcast.
Sure.
And he'll tell us.
I think I want to keep long-term judgments out for now because I want to see a full year. I don't know. It is difficult. He did move cross country, switch conferences, had to get acquainted with this team that's very tight knit very quickly. So I do want to give him, I'm not going to judge the deal long term until I start to see him next year, and we get a better idea of what he looks like when he has a full off season to prep with, on Long Island. Just so everybody knows, this is a Vapo. It's Vicks. So I'm not vaping.
Vaping through your nose.
I just desperately, my nasal passages are just completely clogged. Anyway, game 2. We give up another early goal. I saw a stat. It's been 22 playoff games since the Islanders led after the first, which is incredible because the Islanders have won plenty of playoff series in that time. But I guess that goes to show this team is a third period team, and they don't get out of the gate well, which is that's not good. And I've said I don't think this team plays as well when they're chasing the game. And the Islanders did have to chase this. They were down 2-0. Stastny scored the first goal. Was not happy with this because the Islanders, again, a guy in front tips it in. No one's on him. At first, it's easy to pick on Samuel Bolduc because he's the rookie. It's the easy pick. He had a bad game in game 2. But looking at the replay, I think maybe Ryan Pulock, who was the backside defender here, could have stick lifted or just put a body on Stastny. He's guarding the other side of the net, and the puck is against the boards on the far side. That pass is not getting through 3 guys, and if it does, then it's bad luck. So I think that one might be more on Pulock, the first goal.
Okay. So okay, gotcha.
Yeah. The second goal from Nason, another power play goal. Just that was the Sebastian Aho hitting it into his own net.
Yeah.
That one. So obviously, what are you really gonna do? I was frustrated with Sorokin at first, and here's why. That puck took a while to get to the goal. Though I did think about this afterwards, it's a black puck. It's airborne into a crowd of people dressed in red and black. He might have just once it went up, once it got deflected, he might have lost it.
Yeah, it was hit by a black stick. I mean, he probably didn't even see it get hit because that's what even Brendan and Butch were talking about was just it looks like he's looking his head went to track it because he thought it was going to the corner. He didn't even
very much. Yeah, he did not see that until it was basically by him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's frustrating. But there's really nothing you can do there. Really nothing
I
at
know.
all. Like, I can't even fault Aho for the how is he supposed to know that's going to happen? And
Yeah, exactly. He's trying to break up the play because he
Yeah,
doesn't want if somebody gets around him,
you're
then
yeah, you're trying to slow down a zone
Mhm.
entry, and you're on the penalty kill. So it
Mhm.
makes sense. It's frustrating. I feel like the goals the Islanders have given up in this series. There's been a lot of embarrassing goals in this series, and we'll talk like more. Like Antti Ranta is just not giving up good goals. He's giving up really poor goals. Um, so a lot of weird goals in this series. Anyway, but so the Islanders down 2-0. Uh, they do get one back mid-second period. Kyle Palmieri goes around the whole net, just flings it to the front on the backhand. Just no excuse for this to go in. It never left the ice. Again, kind of like the Ryan Pulock shot in game one. Uh, Ronta just getting caught. I guess like you're expect. It's like a baseball player expecting a fastball and you get a changeup, and you're like set, and you expect the shot to have already come in, and now it's like just dawdling by
Yeah,
you.
because he kind of like was falling down as the shot went in. Like that's actually a really interesting way of putting it.
It was very reminiscent of like, and I tweeted this like 2013 Marc-Andre Fleury against the Islanders in the playoffs. That year, he gave up a ton of fluky goals, got pulled, and then Thomas Volkun put the Islanders away by just playing normal goaltending, not giving up these awful goals. Which is funny because that was 2013. It's 2023. Marc-Andre Fleury on the same night the Islanders blew it, got blown out. So like playoff Fleury. But so the Islanders get that goal, gives them a lifeline. Right before the end of the second, Adam Pelech picks off a pass right through the middle of the zone, just hands it off to Barzy. What a smart play by Adam Pelech. First of all, it's late in the period. You can afford to pinch and take a gamble. He does. He gets rewarded. And also he recognizes that Matt Barzal is much faster than him. He basically just hands it off to him. And Barzy, turns Brett Pesce a little inside out. But again, this is a shot that should not go in. It's not it's not like located that well. It is over the pad and under the glove, but that has to be stopped. Has to be stopped. Antti Ranta, again, letting the Islanders right back in. And the Islanders were not playing that well. Again, I felt like it was the Carolina's style, at least for the first period and then the first half of the second, stifling the Islanders. And the Islanders get one goal, and all of a sudden like third period, the Islanders are really pushing. And they got chances. I also I forgot to mention, very quick, back to game one, Anders Lee, a really good chance. Went to his backhand, made it the easiest possible save for Ranta. And also Pierre Engvall had kind of a one-on-one. So the Islanders did create a few chances in game one.
And I think Nelson had a really good chance, but he like went by the net too fast. Yeah, he like had a shot on goal, went off Ronta's shoulder, and then missed the second shot, the rebound.
Yeah, so I don't want to make it sound like we didn't have any chances in game one, but it was limited. And the chances we had, we kind of just turned into boring chances somehow. But so the Islanders tied it 2. There's momentum going into the third. I thought they played really well early in the third. They take the lead. Martin Nikis gets caught a little bit forward. Puck bounces behind him. Brock, once that came loose and Brock had space, it was like goal. I mean, he's not the most accurate shooter at the 2023 All-Star game for nothing. You just felt that was inevitable. Like once that was on his stick, it was a goal. And from there, I tweeted it, and you can't lose. You have to, because now I know
the Islanders will never lose again. That's exactly what you tweeted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. The phrase is that you haven't lost the playoff series until like the series hasn't started until you've lost at home. But the Islanders lost a huge opportunity to go home and have a chance to hold serve and go up 3-1. I mean, that's the formula when you're starting off as the road team. Just get one and then win at home. And they failed. They give up a late goal. And as frustrating as this is, again, Sorokin, He's a little bit down too quick. Um, it sucks that you now have to account for this as well, like the shot off the helmet. But players are good and they're doing it now. And for me, but this isn't. It starts with puck bounced around the zone. Two Islanders went to the defenseman at the point with the puck, Clutterbuck and Cizikas, and they let. I'll have to look it up, the name just to remember. Slavin. They left Slavin, Jacob Slavin, wide open, and it gave him the time to pick out that play. It gave him the time to align the shot off of Sorokin's helmet, because whichever defenseman was left back can't abandon the front of the net. Mm-hmm. So it was a miscommunication that led to that goal. And yeah, I mean, like, I'd prefer to see Sorokin hold that post a little better. But Slavin had too much time to pick that out. So 3-3, go to OT. A lot of penalties in this game. I should go back before we go to OT because we're going to talk about the refs again. The penalties the Islanders took in regulation, all completely true. You know, you can't argue the double binders. And the Islanders did a really good job on the PK for the most part. I think Carolina went like 1 for 5. The Islanders put themselves in some bad spots and they survived on the PK. So I'm not arguing like you're like, how is it possible that the Canes get 6 power plays and we get none? Like, it is very rare. That was the first playoff game in Islanders history without a power play. It's like the second.
We had one call, right?
But it just 6 to none.
We had one call, but it just negated one of the double minors.
That's true. Yeah, so. We didn't have a power play though.
Yeah.
There was a penalty on the Canes. It just negated a 5-on-4, mm-hmm. Negated a 4-on-4, and then the Canes still had a little bit of a power play left. Yeah. So, the goal, very frustrating. Scott Mayfield definitively gets not cross-checked.
High sticked.
Should have been called. 2 referees right on top of it.
Yeah, you know, I saw you retweeted Isles territory. I just, when you were talking about the Slavin goal, I was just like, I saw that and I was like, because I was watching extended highlights earlier today, like, you know, and they didn't show that at all.
Yeah.
They like intentionally don't show those missed calls sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, they don't want to promote that. And there was enough time in between that.
Yeah. 2 refs right there. Yeah.
And there was, sorry.
No, I don't. I'm speechless, like literally.
I'm not. I never am. There was, an argument by, I think, Mike Rupp from NHL Network that, Scott Mayfield, like tied him up and made it so that, he made that play with a stick, Martinook. But no, you still are responsible for where your stick is. And, that's like an irresponsible, like, he just whipped his stick out of he whipped his stick. Very important to say that and enunciate. He whipped his stick and just
also,
he just whipped that across Scott Mayfield's face.
But if you use that, the defenseman tied him up, so he just the forward just speared the defenseman. It's like, like that logic doesn't work.
Yeah, you have to do a better job of not annihilating the guy's face. Now, So look, I was coping last night, coping hard. It's Copenhagen.
I was gonna say that.
It was awful, and that's really sad that we both thought of that. But the Islanders had enough time to regroup. The Islanders got stuck yelling at the ref. Mayfield and Pollock got stuck on the same side of the ice. Jesper Foss snuck in behind. Anders Lee kind of fell asleep. Again, like, it's tough because that's not Anders Lee's assignment. There should be a defenseman there, but also like it took too long to recognize what was happening. And Ilya Sorokin gets stuck a little bit too deep in his net for my liking. And Jesper Foss wins it. That is like among the most frustrating losses that I've ever watched. And the Islanders are now 0-6 against the Canes in the playoffs. They got swept by them in the first Barry Trotz year in 18-19. It's a weird. Some teams just have your number. Tampa for us, for sure. Carolina is another, it seems. Even in the regular season, even before they had this big, culture change and they got really good. Uh, Even when they were just kind of mediocre, like they would always beat the Islanders. I hated seeing Islanders Canes games at home because I knew the Canes, even if they had the worst record, they're going to win. And the last game I saw before COVID was the Canes won on a high stick that wasn't called. Yeah, they lead. They lead. It's hard to say because Tampa's also frustrated us a lot. Carolina frustrates the hell out of the Islanders, like historically the last few years. I guess where do we go from here now? Or James, what do you?
Well, yeah. So I
what
wanted
was your gut feeling?
So we talked about this just a bit before we started recording, but I wanted to get into it a bit more. So the first thing is, do you blame Scott Mayfield for leaving his post, for leaving his assignment to go and argue with the ref?
Yeah.
Because
I guess a little bit like
it's hard to say, right? Because
the ref, like if you're bleeding,
like,
the Canes got a call that way.
That's true. Yeah, and it was like 10
seconds
seconds after it happened. It was like a
good the Islanders had possession way up going up the ice, and it was the right call. So I'm not going to say like the refs didn't get that right. It's just not like the it's like math. Like the order of operation is off. Like they're it's like a kid on a math test getting the answer right, and they're like, "Can you show your work?" And the work is all wrong. It's like, how did you get this right? That's how it felt, and like I was absolutely coping last night. And look, I stand by that the call was, I think it's almost like definitive. It was very obvious that was the wrong call. But the Islanders have to, it's the playoffs. You have to regroup.
Exactly.
In like Toronto had a ton of penalties against them in game one. And John Tavares said oh, the refs. And like you lost 8-3 or whatever. Like you lost 7-3. When you lose by 4, like a referee's decision, I don't know. And also I didn't think the decisions were bad. There was one goal against Toronto. I'm still not convinced they even crossed the line and they called it a goal. That was weird. That was very weird. But still, they gave up 4 power play goals. Anywho, talking about the Islanders again. They got it. They get out of their own heads. And I wonder if a lot of these guys were around for that 2018-19 loss. Are the Canes in their head? They just don't beat the Canes.
I don't know.
And the Canes are part of that is the Canes are probably a better team.
Yeah.
There. I think they're kind of similar to the Islanders defensively, except they have more jump in their defensemen, better skating defensemen, and that's why they break out faster.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but so then, do you blame Scott Mayfield? Yes or no?
He has to share some blame.
That's fair. Yeah. Because there's so many. It could have gone so many ways. The ref could have blown it down.
Basically, everything fell apart.
Yeah.
Mayfield was discombobulated. Pulock didn't cover the side he was supposed to be covering, and Anders Lee fell asleep, and then Ilya Sorokin was too deep in his net. Everything went wrong.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Yeah. Also, I just want to get out ahead of it. I know what you mean. You don't start Varley in game 3. I don't think Sorokin's been bad. I just don't think he's throwing them much.
People have been calling for that?
I haven't seen a ton of it, so I don't want to. I don't want to be one of those guys that because I see this on Twitter. Sometimes people are like, "We need to stop doing this," and it's I haven't seen anyone do that. And you just took a very uncontroversial opinion.
Yeah.
And you made it out to be less than that.
So then my next question though is, the number of hits in the first game was pretty even, but in the second game it was I don't know if it's actually up here, but it was heavily favored the Islanders. Mm-hmm. And I think the Canes fans, from what I've seen online, think that the Islanders have been playing dirtier.
Look,
and if you look at the amount of power plays that the Canes get, that would seem almost obvious. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I think though that the Islanders are definitely laying more hits, and you would hope, if as an Islanders fan, I would hope that means that the physicality is catching up with the Canes, and so that the grind is setting in, and so as the series grinds on, it's going to be harder for them to to pull out the wins. So
maybe that's the hope, is that you grind them down. I mean, it's a team missing Svechnikov, so there's a little bit missing offensively, and the Islanders at 5-on-5 are doing pretty well. The Islanders have to stay out of the box, and I could see, where the Canes fans could feel like the Islanders have been cheap too, because the Matt Martin like just sat on and I saw one person on Twitter like argued with me and said that should have been a misconduct. I don't think it was a misconduct. It was definitely a penalty, but I don't think game misconduct. The one that went uncalled, the big one now, one of the best players, Turbo, as he's nicknamed for the Canes, Teuvo Teravainen, broke his wrist on a John Gabriel Pajot slash. And I saw the replay, and like in slow-mo, obviously it doesn't look that hard, but he broke the guy's wrist and he's done for the playoffs. So I was actually a little bit surprised the Islanders that Pajot didn't get a fine or anything. Not that I saw. Maybe he didn't. I didn't see.
I don't know. If I'll look before we post this, and I'll post it in like the description or something, because I didn't even hear about that until after the game. That's where they did not even notice it in the game. I didn't hear anybody talk about it during the game. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad. I like Teravainen as a player too. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I definitely look. I can see. I feel like the Islanders in past years, the Islanders have been like annoying and physical, but not cross the line to dirty. I think this series, like the Canes have an argument. Like the Islanders got to tighten it up for sure. I mean, the high stickings are more of like lack of discipline. It's not really like I'm trying to take this guy's face off. But yeah, I
want to take his face.
Oh, good.
So all right, and scene. So then what do you think about Bolduc? I mean, like how do you think he'll be in game 3?
I think he'll be watching from the rafters. If I look, he had the big misplay in our playoff, our wild card game against Montreal. He has taken penalties in this series. He took a really bad. He took one of the double minors. And
that was his only. He only had one penalty previously in the regular season.
Oh, I don't know.
Or I'll check now. But anyway, so.
But he you can't just like wait for these guys to grow in the playoffs. You have to put the best lineup possible out there. If guys are screwing up, they have to come out of the lineup. And he has a short leash as a rookie. And I'm not saying anything about his future in the NHL because of this, but he is not ready. And I don't know if Parker Wotherspoon is, but I think it's worth giving him a look. If Romanov is out, Romanov is being called a game time decision. It would be huge if he was back. Although we can't expect him to be 100% because I think it was an upper body injury they called it, but I was worried that it was a head injury because of the weird timetable they've given to it. So yeah, I think Bolduc has to sit no matter what, even if it means Parker Wotherspoon plays.
Yeah. So Bolduc only had one penalty, 2 minutes of penalties in the regular season.
Yeah.
And 4 in the playoffs.
And also a big reason why you have to make that change is if you don't trust one defenseman, the other 5 guys are going to get overtaxed in minutes.
So then do you think then that could have played a role in the outcome of this Islander Canes game because
maybe
he only played the first 5-10 minutes. So
yeah, it's impossible to get it it's not like a video.
I know.
It's a stat like his endurance dropped because he played too many minutes. But for sure, maybe they're constant. When you're tired, your concentration starts to wane. It's harder to make heady plays, and Mayfield and Pollock had to play a lot. And they were out on the ice for that goal. They were discombobulated because of the arguing with the refs, but maybe just tired from playing so much and lost the concentration a bit. So I don't know. That's one of those things. There's no definitive answer. You can't know.
Well,
Unless Ryan Pollock tells you I lost +2 speed. I was -2 speed because I was dealing with a minor injury. I don't know.
yep, exactly. Okay, so anything else then to say about game 1 or 2? And then I think we'll kind of talk a bit more generally about the rest of the league. We're gonna go over your bat bracket, how it's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much I guess Ryan Pollock is the standout in a positive fashion in the first 2 games. Uh Even being involved in that, like in the game losing goal, still has been probably our best skater. Matt Barzell in the second game looked a lot like his like
Mhm.
healthy self. That was big. Um, so the hope is not gone, but for me, it's very, very, very difficult. This Islander team has to scratch and claw for everything because they're not super, super skilled, so they have to work so hard to score. I I don't know if they can win this series after going down 2 games to nothing. It's going to be a real. If they had won that game, I would say we got a real shot. We might even be slightly favored, but that is a heart. Like just, I have a heart. I had a heart attack. I'm doing a great job with my words right now, but that was brutal, brutal, and
All right, so let's cheer ourselves up by looking at other teams that are playing. You tweeted out your bracket. Tom, it's okay. I'll cut out the part where you're crying. It's okay. I won't tell anybody.
I cry on here, but like just from allergies.
Yeah, okay, Tom.
All right, what
So
if I just like NyQuil, sunscreen? I don't know what
so sunscreen. What?
nasal mist.
Okay.
I've got a health pack here. Not even kidding. It's a
So here's a tweet. You
So-
have
wait.
my bracket.
You just take this. It's a health pack, and you just press it against your body like in a video game. You're
Yeah,
fine.
and then it goes away. It's one-time use.
Yeah.
So you have Boston greater than Florida in 5 games. Toronto greater than Tampa Bay
Greater.
in 6 games.
Don't say it like that.
So you have Boston beating Florida in 5, and that's so. When did you last update this bracket?
All right, so this is the one I put out the day of the first round starting, and I put it out before any of the games started. Yeah, so Boston, Florida looking really frisky early on though. Big win last night, 6-3. Linus Ullmark, like they were able to put 6 by him. Very impressive. And they withstood some like really tough goals that they gave up, like a shorthanded goal to Brad Marchand, and they gave up a tying goal later. And they were good in the third period. So good for Florida. They look like they're actually fully live in this series. Toronto got annihilated in game 1. Tonight they annihilated Tampa. I think it might be the best thing that's ever happened for this Toronto team to have game 1 go as bad as it did, because man, I didn't get to watch the game tonight, but judging by the scoreline, you're like, oh my God, they were motivated. John Tavares had a hattie tonight.
Damn.
And they just destroyed Tampa. Tampa missing some guys too, Chernak and Hedman. So that's a big deal. Definitely missing big defensemen, physically and
Yeah, literally and figuratively.
So I switched my pick from my initial bracket, and I ended up picking the Islanders in 7. And I'm not super confident in that, but if they do win the series, I think it's going to have to be 7. I don't know if the Islanders are going to win 4 in a row and win this in 6.
No, they'll lose one more, then win 4 in a row and win it in 7.
Oh, so they're going to go down 3-0?
They're going to do it. But just because they want the challenge, not because they have to,
Yeah. And I had the Rangers over Jersey in 7. They just won both road games in Jersey, the Rangers. The Rangers are looking very, very good. And my goodness, they might win the East. My God.
So
I
you
had
think
them
it's
going to the conference final in my bracket.
Yeah.
I had the Islanders and Rangers meeting in round 2.
that would be I wish something like that would happen.
Yeah.
It'd
I don't
be
know.
so much
I
fun.
actually don't know if I want that. I don't know if my heart can take that. Like, it's bad enough dealing with like the way that, like the Islanders have just been giving up these goofy ass goals too. The Aho
So you
one.
think it would just like from like a secondhand embarrassment point of view?
I just like I don't know if I could
Like
take
even if
that.
the Islanders were like competing or like playing well, regardless of if they're winning or not, you think it would just be people would just,
It's just too
never.
much from a little heart.
Yeah.
I have palpitations.
I do think though, while I would love to see the Islanders play the Rangers, I mean, I would love to see the Islanders play the Devils. Like that would be awesome too.
Yeah,
That would be so much fun just to see either one of those two. Um,
yeah. And now both of them are gonna get knocked out because they're both down 2-0.
so sad.
Fun.
It's gonna be
Anyway,
Rangers Carolina, and we're all gonna hate it.
yeah, my conference final, I had Boston over the Rangers in 6. I feel pretty good about that right now. Though obviously the worst case scenario is Toronto Rangers conference final, which at this rate will happen because this is
Wait, you
not the end of
have.
the year.
Sorry, say that again. Did you say because now you have Boston playing Toronto?
Yeah, I just skipped ahead. I have Boston beating Toronto and the Rangers beating the Islanders and then meeting
Sorry,
in the
gotcha.
conference
Yeah, yeah.
final. So yeah, I have Boston winning the East, which is like the coldest take in the world.
Hmm.
The most lukewarm take in the world. In the West, I did the opposite where I faded the teams that everybody's been in on. Everybody's in on Colorado. Everybody's been big on Edmonton, and I decided to be a moron instead of being smart.
This is why you should listen to our takes.
Well, I might be right on this because
I mean, yeah, it
myself.
remains to be seen, but
Uh, the West, I'm not looking too awful. So I have Winnipeg beating Vegas, right? And that's the 8 seed beating the 1. This year, I said to myself, I'm not going to be like a coward with my picks and be like, well, I don't want Vegas to then beat them and I look like an idiot. I don't care anymore. I constantly do. Embrace it. And I went with my gut. I was like, Winnipeg's going to win. The stats were actually not that far apart, like goals for per game, goals against, power play, penalty kill. And Winnipeg has the better goaltending. So I was like, I'll take Winnipeg as the 8 seed taking out the 1. Game 1, Winnipeg wins 5-1. So they play again tonight. So not bad. I have Edmonton over LA in 6. That series is tied at 1. Edmonton very easily could have been up 2-0 and blew game 1. Colorado and Seattle. This one's the most shocking one so far. I had Colorado in 5. Seattle's up 1-0 and leading in game 2. Like as we speak. Crazy. Like I just that series, like Seattle's goaltending has been awful this year. It's been like 3rd to worst in the league by save percentage. Colorado is just not scoring. Incredible. Seattle has a crazy good offense, and yeah, they're doing something really shocking. And that I look, I'm all for it. I faded Colorado because I had Colorado losing too. Minnesota, who I have beating Dallas in 7. Minnesota made me look real good in game 1. Well, pretty good. Like they kind of got outplayed, but they won. Then in game 2, they decided to switch goalies for no reason. They win with 1 goalie. And then they switch goalies and they lose 7-3. You're a bunch of morons. You're stupid. You deserve to lose.
yeah,
This
hire
is
Tom.
picking Minnesota to go to the Cup. I was like, fade the 2 big ones. There's the NHL. It's never the teams you absolutely think are going to be there. Unless you pick Tampa 3 years in a row. But yeah, there's always like one of the like big teams that gets knocked out early.
Yeah, definitely.
For me, I took Vegas as that team.
I mean, the Islanders didn't even make it in the playoffs last year, and we were like, at least to us, we thought they were going to win the cup. So
Coming into the year, we had expectations. They were
yeah. But anyway,
but yeah, so I have Edmonton and Minnesota meeting in the conference final. I have Minnesota in 7. I have Boston over Minnesota in the Cup final. So like, yeah, everybody is picking Boston to win the Cup pretty much. But for the people that like faded Boston in the East and picked the Rangers are absolutely dominating the Devils. Like that's scary. I think Carolina, they this is going to sound like sour grapes because they're beating us, but like the Rangers are going to beat Carolina if they play them. You got to have good goaltending against the Rangers because they have a good offense. They have a really, really, really deep offense, and yeah, I don't think that Carolina's goaltending at the moment, which just keeps giving the Islanders extra lives, is going to be much worse for them to play the Rangers and to have an offense that is like firing on all cylinders. So, man, the Rangers are hot right now. We'll see. We'll see what happens. My nightmare is Toronto Rangers conference final. And then in the West, I don't really care. I guess my nightmare in the West would be like, I don't even know. Like, I don't dislike any of these teams. I don't really like Vegas too much. So I guess it's like, oh, if Vegas got there and played Boston, I'd be like, I wouldn't really be rooting for either team in the final.
What do you think then? So now, if you could readjust your bracket today, what would you modify?
That.
Would you stay consistent or would you flip a few things?
I would try to resist that urge because you don't want to overreact too much and you want to stand by your guns. I feel really good about the Winnipeg pick still. Edmonton, I thought would maybe have a little bit of an, even though I had Edmonton at 6, I guess I thought Edmonton would kind of like control that series, but LA did a really good job of coming back in game 1. I mean, I can't pretend to have had any idea that Seattle was going to play this well so far. I guess the one worry I had, and it's reflected by having Colorado get knocked out of round 2, was Colorado not being deep enough because of all the injuries they faced. And that might be right, but it just might be in round 1 that it happens. So I think Minnesota might overthink themselves into losing round 1, which is funny. I picked them to go to the Cup. But yeah, the West remains wide open. Any team in the West in the playoffs could go to the final.
So what if the Islanders got
in the East, the Rangers looks like they should make the final almost.
So what if the Islanders got moved? The franchise moved to a different island in the United States.
What have you done? Kansas City, the island of Kansas City.
So yeah, you know, and then all of a sudden now we're in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
Bam, we're like
Kansas City Islanders.
The Kansas City, yeah.
But, that finally helped.
What about that?
Wait, what? Like, just wait. Was there anything past putting us in the West?
Well, then we would be in a worse conference, and we might win more games.
I guess it's not that it's really worse. It's just that like the gap between the top teams and the bottom is very little. In the East, there's definitely. I mean, maybe there isn't as much of a gap. Like Florida's putting a real good showing in early. The Islanders, despite not really playing great, like they're staying in games. So far, the most disappointing team by a mile is Jersey. Like just getting pounded at home by one of your biggest rivals. Probably their biggest rival. I would say, yeah. Philly's one of their biggest rivals too, but I would say the Devils and Rangers. You know, the cities are close.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Ranger fans at those Devils home games. Yeah, Devils fans, I'm very sorry. This looks real bad.
So what we have to do is show up to these Islander games, the next 2 home games against Carolina, and just threaten the Carolina players to lose. That's all we got. No.
Hey, you better lose tonight.
All right, so we'll close it off.
Uncalled penalty.
We like really stepped on the brakes when we started talking about the bracket, bracket. So let's end it. Let's end the podcast with talking about our predictions for the next 2 games. Let's just focus on the next 2 home games.
Okay.
I am optimistic that we win both. I'd be surprised if we didn't win game 3, like as a strong response. But yeah, so my prediction is win game 3, and it's going to be close to game 4, but we pull out a win because I'm a homer.
The way the series is going, I don't think we're going to get swept, but I do feel like we're going to only win one of our home games in this next 2. We'll be down 3-1 going to Carolina. We might be able to grind out a win there and then lose at home in 6. I had us in 7. Just, I don't know. Like the Islanders got to get more pucks on net and make Antti Raanta make mistakes. But there's a good coach over there in Carolina. Rob Brindamore's a great coach. He might realize that like Antti Raanta is keeping the Islanders in games, and he might switch over to the third string goalie whose name I can't pronounce, but I literally had him in fantasy. Kochetkov, I think it is. Or go back to Freddie Anderson, who like was injured a lot this year. But like I said, they kind of have 3 goalies, and Raanta doesn't look very good. They could just go to one of the other 2 guys. And if I were Carolina, it's weird because you're up 2-0, but I would make that change. I would absolutely switch goalies and stop giving the Islanders chances to stay in these games.
Okay. That'd be interesting. Do you think we'll actually see that?
I wouldn't put it past Rob Brindamore's a really sharp coach, and he's young, so he's not like one of these fossils that's like afraid to take chances. So I am
like Lou Lamoriello.
Yeah. Well, I mean coaching wise.
No, I know.
But I think they do. He's a sharp coach. I think it's obvious the goals he's giving up are keeping the Islanders in games. And if the Canes had a little bit better, more consistent of a goaltending effort, the Islanders would be like not threatening.
So then last question I have is, do you think the Islanders if they end up winning this series, do you think it's going to be, I don't know if this is perception versus maybe reality, but do you think a lot of people will think that they stole the series, that they like really just lucked out if they end up winning the best of 7? Or do you think obviously it depends, right? 4 more games to play at the 5 more games to play if it goes to 7 games. A lot can happen, but it's like almost like the way that these games are going. I think they have to. I think like in the future games, game 3, the Islanders have to respond strong, but make it clear, do their best to not take penalties. Mm-hmm. Because if they keep on taking penalties, I think it's just going to, it's just going to like whether or not they win the series, I don't know. The perception will be that they played dirty. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I mean, the first step is to stop, get out of the box, stop committing penalties. By the way, Winnipeg is up 1-0. Look at that. And the Kraken are up 2-0 on Colorado. I didn't pick that. I look very good about the Winnipeg pick, though. But
famous last words.
Will they have stolen the series? It's hard to say. They could just put in an all-around better effort at home, and just like all of a sudden, look. If you're looking for something to hold on to, Carolina has been really bad on the road in the playoffs. Last year in their playoff series against, I think it was Boston, they won all 3 home games and they lost all 4 road games. So I think even Canes fans were saying yesterday, like when I was coping and I was angry about the Islanders losing, they were like, whatever, you're just going to win the next 2 games because we can't win at home, on the road. So maybe.
So, and it's almost like they think it's going to go to 7 too then.
Maybe. It's weird. This Canes team, I don't know. They're missing something. It's so frustrating. It's a really good team, but I don't know if they're like great in any one area. Their penalty kill is great, but like I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but they don't really seem to be a threat to the cup, but they're absolutely a great regular season team.
We will have to dissect this series.
I think they're missing a slow-stopping goalie. If you put Sorokin on the Canes, I think they win the cup.
And what's so frustrating is, and you said this a long time ago, it does sometimes feel like the Islanders are wasting, the pretty like some of the best goaltending. I
at
know
least they're
last
in the
season
playoffs.
Barley was probably a bit better. He also obviously they played more split. Yeah. So
Well, I think you know what, they're not they'd be wasting him more if they were just altogether not making the playoffs even.
that's what happened last season, you know?
Yeah,
So,
but they've made the playoffs 4 to 5 years, like
that's fair.
consistently good. I think the challenge, especially if they lose this series, is going to be like I don't really think it's lack of effort. I do think there's obviously some coaching stuff that they have to clean up, but it's talent. They need a little more talent. And when they didn't have Barzy in game 1, they barely threatened at all. The one goal was a fluke, and Barzy was a spark in game 2. The Islanders need more of those guys, and they're missing Romanov right now defensively. So, something that I think Islanders fans that actually watched the team the last year can tell you is, they had a reputation for being such a stingy defense that didn't give away chances. That was true under Barry Trotz, but over the last year, it's more so been the goalies picking up the defense than the other way around.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So, I do think the Islanders, it's weird because it's a team that everybody knows that scoring is their thing that they need to improve on. But they do need to be a little better defensively as well.
Well, that's also you just made me think, like, with the defense through the last 2 seasons, I think they split up Pelech and Pulock, who have like consistently been the best defensive pair, but they've had to split them up because of all the problems they have with the defense and filling in the lines and stuff. So it's like and like I'm pretty sure the stats have I can't remember if we talked about this, but I'm pretty sure the stats have shown like they are the best when they're together. Like they play better. Their individual stats are better when they're on the same line, or when they're playing side by side. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of like filling in the holes. Like, it's like we're
you're trying to limit the damage.
Yeah, but it's almost like
it's hard to do that when Bolduc is sitting the whole game because he makes a mistake.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
What would you have done in that situation?
Benching it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, I don't know.
Also, Pelech in game 1 was not very good. Like, I didn't say that, but I probably he was.
I didn't say that. Who said that?
He was getting beat. He was getting walked around a little bit. Game 2, he was good. So stepped it up.
I mean, hopefully, yeah. I guess that's the if. So then, do you think the Islanders are on the right trend?
I mean, yeah. I mean, game 1, I thought they were terrible. So yeah,
yeah. Anything is an improvement.
Really couldn't have stepped back. Like game 1,
that and that's
one of the most anemic offensive performances I've seen.
I when I was watching game 1, I just kept on thinking. I was like, there's just and you just don't feel it.
Yeah, nothing's happened.
Nothing's happened. And then I was going to say this earlier, but towards the end of period 3 or halfway through period 3, when they had a couple of chances and stuff and they're really generating something. I mean, it's just like, it's too little too late. Like if you get something, it's going to go to OT, and then there's no guarantee there, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know how much of it is just that, because everybody says, oh, if they want to play well, they're going to play well. I don't know. I just think, I don't know what it is. It's not that. I don't think it's effort. I think it's,
talent. There's a talent.
Yeah, I guess so, right?
Need a little more talent.
It's like you're almost like the guys are waiting for that talent or waiting for something to happen, waiting for those opportunities. They don't have enough people generating those opportunities. Obviously that was very obvious when Barzal wasn't playing.
At the risk of sounding mean, I think something that is scary about the team structure going forward is Pelech and Pulock and Romanov, all good defensemen. I worry about how fast the game is going. Every year it's getting faster. And they're not their skating isn't their main attribute. Those guys are physical.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if the Islanders are not they need an infusion of a little bit more especially on the power plays, somebody that can enter the zone that isn't just Matt Barzal.
Mhm.
And Noah Dobson has a little bit better skating, but he gets picked off the puck a lot. He's not very big, so he gets bodied a lot. That's something I think needs to be, whether it's off on the blue line or a forward in the offseason, they have to prioritize bringing in guys that are good skaters. Somebody that I think it's Phil's Facts has championed for a while, and he caught my eye in the game that gave the Islanders a chance of making the playoffs. Andreas Athanasiou scored a goal for the Blackhawks that helped put the Penguins away and give us a real shot at making the playoffs. So Athanasiou has crazy good skating. That's the kind of thing the Islanders need. And, need to see a consistent, effort.
So you think the Islanders need to be brought into the 21st century and bring in some skill players instead of this, sacrifice some of that grit, some of that,
We have plenty of grit.
Yeah.
That's why it's funny when we traded for Engvall, Toronto fans were like, well, he's never going to lay a hit. It's like everyone else in the Islanders. That's fine. Yeah. That's not something. That's why no one's complaining about Engvall is really lacking some grit. We have our fourth line is just the stereotype of
it's oozing grit.
Yeah. And I haven't been very happy with them in the series so far, the fourth. And I don't know, feels like they should be done after this year.
Well, that remains to be seen.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they're not awful. But it definitely feels like we're coming to the end of that. And I think
end of an era.
I would feel better in the future having Fasching playing the fourth line instead of Clutterbuck, but Fasching's been playing well enough to play on the third line, and I don't want to break up that third line because it's a good line. It's a shutdown line, and Parise and Fasching bring really good effort on that line.
All right. On that note, let's go to the mailbag.
I got email from my brother.
Oh,
it says eat shit.
Wow. All right. Good stuff, guys. Keep it up. More for next week. That concludes our mailbag segment.
Also, what is he, a boomer? He emailed me.
That's a good one.
He wrote me a handwritten note.
No. What's an old social media? What, you sent me a Facebook message? Are you a boomer? Well, that's actually true.
He poked me on Facebook.
Boomers do use Facebook.
Yeah, well, that's more of a millennial thing, the poking.
Oh, poking. Oh, yeah.
You poked. I got into.
Is that still a thing? I don't think that's a thing anymore.
Did they take away that feature?
I think so. Yeah. It's not called the wall anymore either. It's called your feed and your timeline.
Yeah, I mean,
you know that.
That's fine. That's not. Elon kicked everybody off of the verified accounts today.
Mm-hmm. Elon did it personally. Yeah.
So I was already oh, that's good, because in New York, one of the government accounts didn't carry over and wasn't verified, so people were just pretending to be it, and they were free stuff all the time. It's this may be a problem. We may have set up too much of our lives on Twitter.
I completely agree with that.
I wouldn't know. I was just tweeting through my coping last night.
All right. This is I've been trying to end this podcast for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I'm also not helping. I'm engaging with you and also saying things.
Oh yeah.
So all right. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening and watching. This was a little bit of a downer of a podcast. I apologize.
I blame my health.
Yeah, I blame Tom's health too. So I apologize for Tom's health. We will see you probably a week from today, right before Game 6. Assuming there is a Game 6.
Oh God.
And Sterling will be joining us again, most likely.
Yeah.
So, okay.
All right. I'm gonna go to sleep.
All right.